Ladies and gentlemen, I have an important question. Do you like ants by any chance? Maybe? Perhaps? Well, I know I do. And a couple of days ago it was nuptial flight here in the Netherlands. Meaning that all these different ants come up from the ground, they go and like have a weird orgy in the sky and settle all their nests everywhere. But that also means that this was the moment for me, an avid ant enthusiast, to catch some wild queens and in hopes of starting my own ant colony. Now, I will be the first to admit, this is not my first attempt at keeping ants as pets. I did try it last year and sadly they didn't make it. The queens had them in their test tubes and they did very well for the first time. But then after they had their eggs, the nanitics popped out. They just didn't eat anything. I had 4 colonies and I tried different meals for each of them and they just didn't take anything. But this year, I feel it. It's gonna be different. Now I did film this vertically since I am in fact a troglodyte, but in my backyard the only thing I could find was remnants of queens being dragged off by worker ants. In front of my house is where I actually found our first queen. She was just gallivanting around on the floor and I tried very hard to get her in this cup, which didn't really work. At least I couldn't really put it on camera very well. But I did in fact eventually get her in there as a temporary place before I put her in her test tube setup. Now, since I am just a homunculus that only started doing YouTube like months ago, and this is my second video, I forgot to actually film me putting the ants in the test tube setups, or at least I have snippets of it, again filmed vertically because I am just amazing at that. But I'll remake it, making the test tube, and eventually you'll see the queens in. Now, for actually making the test tube setup, there's a couple of things we need. First one is a test tube, of course. Now I advise you use some kind of pliers, since you can clean this. You can actually like semi-sterilize them with bleach and all sorts of stuff. So I recommend having one of these. Cotton balls, they're very important. With just a normal cotton ball, nothing too fancy. I personally like to use demineralized water, since the ants do have a slightly better chance with them. You can also use just normal tap water. It probably depends on where you live and how good the tap water is. But without further ado, let's get cooking. Now for the first step, we're gonna want to pour some water. So I have my test tube here. We're gonna need to fill this up like this. It's fine, a bit more than I usually do, but it's gonna be fine. So now we take our cotton ball, we're gonna push it in here. Get it in, push it down. Now this is why the tweezer will come in handy. And you just kind of have to push it down and slowly the cotton will soak up the water, which is fine. That is what we want. So now it's in there. Now I can confidently hold upside down without any of the water leaking. And now we have pretty much most of it done already. What we're now gonna want to do is, I advise you wear gloves for this, or use your tweezers again. You're gonna want to nudge the queen inside of the test tube so that she's just comfortably sitting there. And when she's in there, you use another cotton ball and you plug the entrance like this. So now you have your test tube set up, and if you're following the steps at home, you'll have a queen who is sitting neatly in the middle of these spaces. Now this will allow for her to drink the water and use the water to moisturize her nest as she sees fit. If she doesn't have that, she's not gonna wanna lay eggs, or even if she does, they're not gonna flourish, they're not gonna thrive in the way that she would normally underground, because they obviously pick their spot where they wanna build their nest. Following these steps, as I just showed you, I now had 4 queens just chilling. I put them in a little box so that they wouldn't be bothered by light and all kinds of sensory stuff around them. And I just kind of laid them there for a couple of days. Most of the recording was from July 9th and it is currently July 14th, so it's been 5 days. And I actually did check in on the queens to see how they are doing right now, and you'll see the footage right here. So here we have the queens that I got 5 days ago, and as you can see, most of them have already laid some eggs. So this is the first one, and you can clearly see the eggs over here. You will find that most of the queens are kind of clustering the eggs or cleaning them, as number 2 is currently doing. Moving on to the third queen, it is kind of hard to tell. I am not really positive whether or not she has any eggs, but number 4 certainly does. You can clearly see them here and it looks promising. So, as it stands right now, everything looks very promising. At least 3 of the queens have already laid their eggs, and the 4th one, not sure. Maybe she did, maybe she didn't, but it could still be coming. Now the only thing is, I don't know whether or not all of the eggs will be fertile. So if they will actually spring forth new life. But if you want to keep up to date, then don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, comment, and I'll keep you guys posted. When there's more news to be shared, I will do it here. So have a good one.